Welcome back to GCN Racing and highlights of Stage 4 of the Tour de France. Well, what a stage we had yesterday. Julian Alaphilippe on the attack into Epernay, and there was nothing anybody else could do about it. The flamboyant Frenchman carved out enough of an advantage to not only take his third career stage win at the Tour de France, but also his first ever yellow jersey as leader of the race. And it's a lead that he should, in theory, keep today. Another long stage at 213.5 kilometres, taking the peloton from Reims to Nancy, but with little in the way of lumps and bumps along the route. That said, the wind could play its part, and so too could the fourth category climb, the Côte de Maron, 3.2 k's at 5%, which peaks with just 15 kilometres remaining. Apart from that wind, weather conditions were perfect for a bike race. Temperatures in the low 20s, although unfortunately not many riders were interested in racing at the start of the stage. Not uncommon on sprint stages these days, where the breakaway stands little chance of making it to the finish line, but it was disappointing to see just 3 riders head up the road after just a few hundred metres of racing. There we had 2 riders from Wanty-Gobert, Frédéric Bacart and Johan Alfredo, plus the Swissman Michael Schär of Team CCC. With the bunch more than happy with the composition of that break, their advantage soon climbed up to a minute. Behind, it would be the sprinters teams who took the responsibility to control the gap. Lotto Soudal for Caleb Ewan, De Koning Quickstep for Elia Viviani and Jumbo-Visma for Dylan Groenewegen. Despite the wind blowing across the course for much of the stage, the bunch remained reasonably calm. Nobody obviously wanted to light the blue touch paper too soon. That said, it wasn't without incident. This is Tony Galopin hitting the deck again. He'd still not recovered from the injuries he sustained in a crash on the opening day. Ouch, that looks like it hurt. Today's intermediate sprint was located at 67 k's to go, Bacart taking the maximum 20 points ahead of his companions. Behind, for the second day in succession, Elia Viviani was best of the rest, comfortably crossing the line ahead of Sonny Colbrelli and Peter Sagan, who'd started the day with a 17-point lead in that competition over Michael Matthews. With 50 k's to go, the gap to the leaders was down to 1 minute and 26 seconds from a maximum of 3.5. And another Frenchman, Thibaut Pinot, was also experiencing problems en route. A rear puncture forcing a change of wheels and a chase back to the peloton with his teammates, although thankfully for them, the pace at this point was not super high. With the bunch beginning to bear down on them, Schär decided it was time to go alone, although he wouldn't quite manage that initially. His attack would distance Alfredo, but not Bacart. Soon after though, he would manage to drop the Belgian too, but it was going to be a mammoth task for him to keep the bunch at bay. And in fact, the catch would finally happen on that final climb of the day, the Côte de Maron. Bora Hansgrohe and Team Sunweb looking to lift the pace, clearly determined to put the hurt on the pure sprinters behind. Over the top of the climb, it was Sunweb leading, and then Lilian Carmajan put in what I think I'll call a television attack with 11 k's to go, basically getting some airtime for his sponsors, Total Direct Energy. The Frenchman would enjoy around 5 kilometres of freedom, but eventually get caught by the peloton already close to full throttle and being led by Lotto Soudal. From this moment on, it was a very nervous bunch. GC riders, sprinters, helpers, lead-out men all in the mix and wanted to be at the front. With speed of 60 k's per hour, spectators encroaching the road and some road furniture thrown in the mix, it looked like we'd have a crash at any moment. Thankfully though, everybody stayed upright, and it was the yellow jersey himself, Alaphilippe, on the front with 1k to go. The speed had been so high though that most teams had struggled to stick together, but this is De Koning Quickstep's speciality. They still had Morkov and Richesi in front of Viviani. Alexander Kristoff tried to anticipate the sprint of the Italian, but once Viviani kicked, he had the measure of the Norwegian and would take his first ever stage win at the Tour de France, 5 years after his only previous participation and just 2 months after what was a hugely disappointing Giro d'Italia for him. An absolutely brilliant win for Viviani, and you've got to say a lot of that was down to a perfect lead out from his teammates. A job well done for De Koning Quickstep, who've now won 2 stages on the trot, equaling the early success of the Dutch rivals Jumbo-Visma. Third spot on the podium would go to Caleb Ewan. Peter Sagan would come into 4th place, and interestingly, the Jumbo-Visma pairing of Groenewegen and Teunissen were 5th and 6th on the stage. Slightly strange in that normally one would be working for the other, but they clearly both did their own sprint today. In the overall classification, there's no change at all in the top 10. Julian Alaphilippe still with a 20-second advantage over the best young rider, Wout van Aert, with Steven Kruijswijk a further 5 seconds back in third. For the sprinters that missed out today, unfortunately it doesn't look like there'll be another opportunity tomorrow. Stage 5 starts in Saint-Dié-des-Vosges and finishes in Côte de Maron. 175.5 kilometres is the distance between the two, and along that way there are a total of 4 climbs. And included in that are the first 2 second category climbs of the race. Join us again tomorrow here on GCN Racing to catch all the action.